הריני מקבל עליי מצוות עשה של ואהבת לרעך כמוך כמוך הריני מקבל עליי מצוות עשה של ואהבת לרעך כמוך כמוך חברים כל ישראל חברים כל ישראל חברים כל ישראל הריני מקבל עליי חברים כל ישראל חברים כל ישראל חברים כל ישראל הריני מקבל עליי Shalom uvracha, dearest friends, welcome. I'm so glad you're with us tonight. Let's sing one more nigun as we get started and wait for some other chevra to join us. A nigun for not just Bein HaMitzarim, for every day, every single day. A little bit of a different setup today, but we're going to do our best. Dai, 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 dai. Da, 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 da-dee, da-dee, bum, 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 bim, bum, bim, bum, die, 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 da, da, die, 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 da, 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 ma, ya, ya, da, 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 bum, 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 bim, bam, 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 da, 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 do, 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 da, 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 oh yeah, no, no, bam, 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 bim, 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 da, 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 ma, ya, ya, da, 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 la, 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 ba-da-dum, ba-da-da, la, 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 di-di-da, la, 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 di-di-di, ah, la, 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 da, 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 la, 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 li-li-li, ah, da, da, la, 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 li-li-li. Ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, bum, bim, bum, bim, 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 bum, bam, bum, bim, ay, 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 di-di-day, lay, 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 ay, 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 do-do-do, oh, do, 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 Oh, you know, oh, 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 Yismechu v'machuscha, Yismechu v'machuscha. Ay shalom v'rei Shabbos v'koidei, oinei v'koidei, oinei. Ay, la 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 li la li li. Ay, la 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 li la la li. Badam 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 bam bim bam bim 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 bim. Ay ay ay. Da 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 da. Oh yo 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 da da. Oh yo 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 da da. Oh yo 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 da 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 da. Bam bam bim bam. Oh yo 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 yo. Oh yo 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 yo. Oh yo 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 yo. You know, Chevra, sometimes we don't have any koyach to continue. Sometimes we're just about at our end. And we're certain that if our kochos, if our strength doesn't get renewed, then we're just going to plop over. And sometimes we do plop over. But what's amazing is that we still get up. How could it be? How could it be? We still get up afterwards, right? Where's that strength coming from? That strength to keep on getting up, no matter what, is directly from Eretz HaKodesh, from Eretz Yisrael. And that's what I want to talk about tonight briefly. Short Parsha Shir. A lot happening in the house. We're all, Baruch Hashem, one big family quarantine right now for about a week. So we have a lot on our plate. And there's a topic in our Parsha that I feel every year is worth really spending as much time as possible to. So I want to first of all send out koach to the whole world, send out strength of hope and of the ability to Bezrat Hashem, not give up no matter what. And I think that we're going to take all the koach that we need tonight from a very special group of people that more or less pop out of nowhere. And who is that? That's the half a tribe of Menashe. We've learned over the years different Torahs about this. But when it comes to dividing the land, which began in Parshat Pinchas, began last week, we come across Shevet, these two Shvatim, Reuven and Gad, and they were getting closer to Eretz Yisrael. And then what ends up happening? They're like, you know, we're good over here. We'll be on the eastern bank of the Jordan. We're good over here. And what's so interesting is that, I don't know, every single year when I read this Parsha and I see Gad and Menashe asking to not go into Eretz Yisrael. And they even come to Moshe Rabbeinu, right? And Moshe Rabbeinu was dying to go into Eretz Yisrael. And they're saying to the person that's dying to go into where they are choosing not to go, listen, we'll chill here. The first word that comes to mind is, what a chutzpah. What a chutzpah, no? These two Shvatim, what a chutzpah. What is this? How could it be? How could it be that you know how badly Moshe Rabbeinu wants to come into Eretz Yisrael? The Midrash tells us, he asked Hashem if he could fly and hover over Eretz Yisrael to be just like the, I think he's the lashon of the Medrash is, let me fly like a bird just to be able to see Eretz Yisrael. And these Shvatim are saying, you know, we're good. We don't need to cross over. Why? Because of our mikneh, because we have a lot of cattle. It seems like such a chutzpah to comment. Leave it to the unbelievable Heilige Lubavitcher Rebbe, who of course is going to elevate each and every one of the Shvatim. And the Rebbe says, in such a beautiful way, that these Shvatim knew what we will later on find out. Hasida Eretz Yisrael shetispashet lechol ha'arotzos. In the future, the land of Israel will reach out to the whole world. So they already wanted to taste what it would be like when Mashiach comes, when Eretz Yisrael's borders widen and it reaches even beyond wherever it is currently. They were already preparing the way for what it's going to be like with the Mashiach reality. And the Rebbe says is that that's why they wanted to stay on the other side of the Jordan. Not because of their cattle, but to strengthen that prophecy that one day Eretz Yisrael is going to be so large and it'll spread its wings geographically, metaphorically, also, but spiritually, but literally geographically as well. That's one way of understanding what happened over there. But I want to focus on the other half of this other mysterious shevet, half of a shevet. When my Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Bravender, would teach about Chetzi Shevet Menashe, he always said, what does that exactly mean? Like, do you count 50% of the amount of people and that's how you get to half a tribe of Menashe? Was it really half of the tribe? And also, where'd they come from? Where on earth did this shevet come from? Because in the beginning, when the Torah tells us about these two tribes that want to dwell on the other side of the Jordan, it doesn't mention Chetzi Shevet Menashe. Only when Moshe Rabbeinu gives them clear instructions, these two Shvatim, it's like Moshe Rabbeinu throws in half of Shevet Menashe while he's at it. Where did they come from? What's going on over here? And what message, eternal message, is this giving us? The Ramban tells us they also were big in cattle. They saw the fields were also be good for grazing for their mikneh. So that's what the Ramban says. But tonight, just for maybe about 15, 20 minutes, I want to learn something from someone that I wish we had a weekly share just in that. I think that'd be a great idea. If anyone wants to sponsor that, I would totally be up for this. Every week to learn the Netziv on the Parsha. The Netziv is something else. Who was the Netziv? Well, let's take a look at a picture of him right now in front of you. Obviously, the Netziv is Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin. There's a few pictures of him. This one I love. And the Netziv is born in 1816. He's born into a very Talmudish family. His father, Rabbi Yaakov, he wasn't a Rav, but he was definitely a big Talmudic scholar. And the Netziv ends up being the Rosh Yeshiva in Volozhin. It was then the largest yeshiva of its kind. And he was the Rosh Yeshiva there from 1854 until it closed in 1892. Amongst some of his students was Rav Kook. And the Netziv's Perush is something that is, it's its own world, it's its own category. The Netziv is able to draw such depth with such clarity, such sharpness, in such a unique way. And tonight I wanted to learn a little bit about how the Netziv understands this whole story of the half the tribe of Menashe, because it has tremendous ramifications for us today. So again, the question is, where did they come from? Why did Moshe Rabbeinu throw them in? And what's this deal with half a shevet? Now there's one other very important piece. There's one other question. When Moshe Rabbeinu, I don't know if you want to say gives in or allows the two Shvatim, Reuven and Gad, to dwell on the Ever HaYarden HaMizrachi, there's Tnaim. There's a Tnai. And what's the condition? You cannot dwell here until you have helped us, Am Yisrael, conquer Eretz Yisrael. Your brothers are going to go out to war and you're going to dwell and sit over here. So he makes a condition. He says, you cannot have these grounds, these lands, until you first make sure that in Eretz Yisrael, everyone's taken care of. That condition was not made with half the tribe of Menashe. It's like this half of tribe comes out of nowhere, has a special status, they're untouched. There's got to be something over here. So when I was learning the Netziv, I was looking for a good Perush on the Netziv, and I came across a young Rav, I think his name, Rav Amir Edrei. This Rav Amir Edrei is, I believe, the head of a girls' ulpana today, now, in a moshav called Tzfaria. There's a moshav in, like a Bnei Akiva ulpana, close to the airport, Tzfaria. I don't know if you've heard of it. I think you may have seen it on the highway. And this Rav basically took the Netziv and he brought it more into a much more modern language. And I think we're going to see something really beautiful and clear and very straight to the point as to what lies behind this half a tribe of Menashe. And I remind you how we began. We began by saying sometimes you feel like you're going to plop. I've had one of those days today. That's okay. Everyone has those kind of days. I get by with a little help of my friends. So we have my friends that are here, and we have our friends that are mamish the tzaddikim, like Rav Soloveitchik would say, that he mamish saw the Rambam and the Maharsha and the Mordech. He saw all the Rishonim and the Achronim walk into Shir while he was giving Shir to his Talmidim. I want to invite the Netziv to our screen. We already did with the picture, but I want us to see his words. And this is very, sorry about the way it came out, but we're going to get through this. This is very, very, very beautiful. B'tchilat ha'inyan, this Rav says, this is paraphrasing the Netziv. Now listen closely. B'tchilat ha'inyan nikshu el Moshe Rabbeinu rak b'nei Gad veReuven, u'bikshu imenu lekabel et nachlatam be'ever ha'yaden b'shel ribui miknehem. That we know. That in the beginning, it was these two shvatim, these two tribes that we kind of said they're chutzpahdik before we heard how the Lubavitcher Rebbe mefaresh them. We kind of said they're chutzpahdik. And we asked, and they asked, please let us dwell over here because of our mikneh, because of our cattle. So after Moshe Rabbeinu comes to some kind of an understanding with these two shvatim, he gets very nervous. And this is where the Netziv is bringing up a nekuda that is so potent, it's so crucial, it's so today, it's unbelievable. It says like this. Yitachen shebeshel richukam shel bnei shevet Reuven vegad me'eretz Yisrael chalila lo ya'asku ba vehi tishakach mehem. He says, maybe because these Shvatim, Reuven and Gad, are going to be far from Eretz Yisrael, they're not going to be dreaming and thinking and learning about Eretz Yisrael because they're going to be far. It might be forgotten by them. They might get so accustomed to Galus. Yeah, they'll wake up in the morning, they'll go to Minyan, they'll say, they'll say all those things. It'll all happen. But they're going to forget what it means to cry over Eretz Yisrael because they're not in Eretz Yisrael. So fourth line, Mevin Moshe Rabbeinu understands from here, She'apitaron chayav lavo be'ofen shel ribui Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu understands. How do you take care of this? You make sure you add a lot more Torah to the picture. B'chokhmato hagdola u'beriyato hamiyuchedet va'amuka. Through Moshe Rabbeinu's tremendous wisdom and deep insight, Poneh Moshe Rabbeinu beyozmato livnei shevet Menashe. Moshe Rabbeinu, on his own, goes to shevet Menashe. It wasn't coming from them. This is very much not according to the Ramban. Remember, the Ramban says this tribe of Menashe also had a lot of cattle. So here, the Netziv is saying it was Moshe Rabbeinu who came to this on his own. He dafka goes to Shevet Menashe. Why? Shevet Menashe yadua b'shakdanuto ubelamdenuto hagdola b'Torah. Shevet Menashe is known for being so strong in Torah. V'lachen Moshe, so therefore Moshe kivyachol shotel otam ben shnei hashvatim, Reuven v'Gad. So it's like Moshe Rabbeinu, what does he end up doing? He, I don't know how to say this in English, shotel, there's a show called Shtulim, no? How would you say it? Does anyone know how you would say shotel? You can type it in the chat. Like we say, Shetulim b'veit Hashem, you're planted, but you're planted secretly. He kind of secretly plants them between these two shvatim. You know, perhaps maybe even he told them, you know, Chevra, this tribe, they also have mikneh. That's what he might have said to the two shvatim, to Reuven and Gad. Maybe he said to them, listen, this Chevra, they also need a place for the same reasons that you did. But really, he knew exactly which agents to put where. And he plants, that's it. He plants these people between these two shvatim, Reuven and Gad. Why? B'chol zot, kedei lechazek et limud haTorah b'kirbam shel shnei hashvatim ha'elu. To strengthen the learning of Torah amongst these two tribes. This is brilliant. This teaches us volumes for how we build any kind of Jewish settlement, and how we focus on any type of Jewish growth, is that you have to make sure that there are seeds of Torah planted firmly between any group of people who on their own maybe are not that chazak. Maybe, right? That's what we do over here. But Moshe Rabbeinu knows that the question is, why would Menashe be so eager? Why would they just like take on this gig of being like, you need us for that? Okay, yeah, we'll give up on this dream called Eretz Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu knew he had to entice them. Omnam yodea Moshe Rabbeinu shelo yeh kal leshachnei et bnei shevet Menashe lekabel nachala me'ever leYarden. He knows it's going to be very hard to convince them. Sharei mas'at nafsham hi lekabel nachala be'eretz Yisrael. Everything they dreamed for, if they're really deeply rooted in Torah, everything they ever dreamed for was for this, to go into Eretz Yisrael. How could you say now, okay, I'll give it up? ולכן מציע משה לבני מנשה נחלה גדולה מאוד כדי לשכנעם להסכים לעצתו. So one of the other questions that comes up is that it seems that it's unfair. You have two big shvatim, Gad and Reuven, and they get a portion, each of them. And then you have Chetzi Shevet Menashe, a much smaller group of people. And yet, later on in the Torah, we see that the portion of Chetzi Shevet Menashe, the half a Shevet, is much larger than the other portions of the other shvatim. Doesn't add up. Why? Moshe Rabbeinu knew he had to entice them. He had to give them a very large portion. He knew it wouldn't be easy to get them to do this. So, ולכן מציע משה לבני מנשה נחלה גדולה מאוד כדי לשכנעם להסכים לעצתו. Next paragraph. ייתכן לפרש. Could be. So the Netziv, again, paraphrasing over here on the Netziv. The Netziv says like this, ייתכן לפרש. כי שבט מנשה איננו מעוניין לוותר לגמרי על הנחלה בארץ ישראל. They're not all, the whole שבט, they're not all in this. There were plenty of them that said, listen, we can't do this, not as a full tribe. B'shum panim v'ofen, no way. Even though it's a holy mission. Still, we can't do this. Ve'ulai ke'en pshara in Moshe, as a compromise with Moshe Rabbeinu, מבקשים ממנו להתחלק לשניים. They're asking Moshe to be divided into two. חצי המנשה ינחל את נחלתו בארץ ישראל. Half of Menashe will take their נחלה, their piece of land in Eretz Yisrael, כדי למלא אחר רצונם לנחום נחלה דווקא בארץ הקודש. Because how could they not? ואילו החצי השני ישב בעבר הירדן. but there was half of the tribe. Again, exactly what number, I don't know. That's a question that I still think about when that Rav Bravender asked. What does it mean exactly half a shade? What does that exactly mean? I don't know. But whatever it is, half decided, we're staying on Arnachla and Eretz Yisrael, and half said, we'll go and do the shlichus. V'ilu achetzi hasheni yeshev be'ever hayarden mitoch kavana lechazek et limud haTorah b'kerev shnei hashvatim Reuven v'Gad. Because they both said, you know what, we're going to strengthen the people here. We're going to strengthen this group of people of Yidden, and we're going to make sure that they don't forget about Torat Eretz Yisrael. You see, Torat Eretz Yisrael is not just learning Hilchot Trumot u'Me'asrot. Torat Eretz Yisrael is the longing for a much more beautiful tomorrow in a way that's impossible to long for when you're in the Galut. The Torah of Eretz Yisrael is the Torah that connects you to the past, present, and future, which is essentially God's name, Yud, K, and Vav, and K. He is, he was, and he will be. This is the story of Am Yisrael when we stopped hanging on to Eretz Yisrael on a level of crying over it. What happens to us? All the Torah we learn, it's nice, it's beautiful. אבל זה לא זה. זה לא זה עדיין. So therefore, the Netziv is basically telling us over here that Moshe Rabbeinu knew these Shvatim don't just need help in learning. Maybe they could learn on their own, fine. But they need the Torah of Eretz Yisrael to be learned amongst them. Shevet Menashe was very plugged into this. And they took it upon themselves, half of it, to go and dwell amongst those other two Shvatim. He continues over here and he says, Zoi gam hasiba lekach, שבני חצי שבט המנשה מוזכרים בתווך בין הפסוקים העוסקים בנחלתן של בני גד ובני ראובן. This is also perhaps the reason why this half the tribe of Menashe, they're mentioned kind of in between the psukim describing bnei Gad and bnei Reuven, because they were planted to be in between these two shvatim. Zot ve'od, im nechonim advarim, if this is all true, barur, now we're going to answer the last question. Barur madua ein tzorech bitnai ben Moshe leben chetzi shevet HaMenashe. So it's pretty clear here now there's no need for a condition to be done and be made between Moshe Rabbeinu and half a tribe of Menashe. The condition that make sure first that everyone is dwelling fine in Eretz Yisrael, and only then you can sit and dwell here. Moshe mevakesh mehem lekabel nachala be'ever yaden hamizrachi. It's Moshe Rabbeinu is asking them to go and do this for him. They're not asking on their own to sit and dwell there. So if they're not asking on their own, Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't have to do a t'nai with them. Baruch she'enu tzarich להתנות t'nai. כפי שהתנה עם בני ראובן וגד, שבאו מיוזמתם לבקש בקשה זו. And he ends up here and he says, אין צריך לעשות תנאי עם מי שעושה טובה גדולה למשה רבינו. There's no need to make a condition with someone who on their own are willing to do a favor for Moshe Rabbeinu. My dear friends, wherever you are, New York, New Jersey, Chicago, Singapore, Israel, wherever we are, what does it mean to do a favor for Moshe Rabbeinu today? Since the Torah is eternal, its messages are eternal. Moshe Rabbeinu receives a favor done for him by Chetzi Shevet Menashe. And that favor was, I will even give up on what I thought was my eternal dream so that other Jews don't forget what the dream is all about. In the last few weeks, I've been clobbered by mail from all over the world, from people who are wondering if everyone has to move to Eretz Yisrael or not. Is basically the calling that everyone should come and move here to Eretz Yisrael? I want to answer that tonight through trying to understand what it would mean today to do Moshe Rabbeinu a favor and be Chetzi Shevet Menashe. So this is what my heart is feeling tonight. And I've been feeling this for a while. If you are living in Galut, outside the land, and you're actively working day and night to turn Jews on to the Torah, to Yerushalayim, to Shabbos. Then stay as long as you need to in order to bring everyone home with you. Do Moshe Rabbeinu a favor and be a shliach ne'eman and just talk about Yerushalayim day and night. Please. Please. But right now, there's no such thing as Gad and Reuven. Now there's no such thing as these two other shvatim. Because now, to dwell on the other side of the Jordan River, you'd be caught up in a militia of terrorists between Syria and Jordan, Iraq and Iran, and who knows who else. It seems that every single second that the gates to come to Eretz Yisrael, that they're locked, that they're closed, like they are today, it's very heavy. 3 a.m, I got a voice note from someone who was supposed to make Aliyah today, this family. And they don't even know when they're coming back home because they can't figure out how to make this happen. This person was crying. He said, I thought I wanted it bad enough, because if I wanted it bad enough, it would have happened. I signed up, I wrote all the applications, it's all there. Dabru alev Yerushalayim v'kiru eleh. That's what it says, but Nachmu Ami. Yomar Elokechem Dabru alev Yerushalayim v'kiru eleh. So, calling out to Yerushalayim today, wherever we are in the world, we are Chasidim of Moshe Rabbeinu. We want to do for him a favor of all favors. We want to be emissaries of Yerushalayim wherever we are in the world. We want to remind everyone that it's mamish all about Kimitzion Teitzei Torah Udvar Hashem Yerushalayim. And it used to be that you had to travel very far in order to get that message across. But as I'm looking at some of your faces right now, I see people here in Canada, in Chicago, in New Jersey, in New York, in Mexico, all over the world. Because the Ribbono Shel Olam has created a reality for us that right now, we can't afford to be far from each other. Right now, technology was created only so that when someone wants to connect to Yerushalayim, they can't wait till they can find the next flight. They have to be in it now. They have to connect to it right now. And it's got to be instant, like everything else is instant. Everything is instant, right? But I'm telling you, Chevra, there is a new light. And even though it's getting really weird and weirder and we're waiting for new guidelines or whatnot, we're waiting for all these different things. But you know what's so amazing? In our heart of hearts, we know how badly we need each other. And it's such a beautiful thing. We know we need each other. We know it's not about who's better or who's worse, who hears a calling or who doesn't hear a calling. We're in this together. I once again will put it out there that we guarantee that anyone who is, maybe was once Shevet Gad and Shevet Reuven, that wants to cross over inside now, we will do everything we can to set you up with the right people. And we now, Baruch Hashem, have our own line and network within Nefesh B'Nefesh, after some very, very good meetings we had this week, to make sure that it's really accessible. But Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach, please God, we're all planted within each other. If once upon a time Moshe Rabbeinu had to plant Talmidei Chachamim amongst two Shvatim to make sure they wouldn't forget to learn Torah, with all the devices we have right now, with all the access we have right now to be in between each other's lives, We're in each other's cars. We're in each other's bedrooms. We're in each other's offices. We're in each other's lives. Baruch Hashem. Shetulim beveit Hashem bechatzrot Elokeinu yafrichu. It's time for us to blossom. It's time for us to be that fruit tree that is so chalashing to bear its fruit. And we're all on the branches, but the root, bark, it's here. And the more you connected you are to the root of the tree, obviously the better, and the more luscious and beautiful that fruit will be. Our children are counting on us. And I'm so excited that this generation is determined to not let them down. So as we read the last two parashiyot in Sefer Bamidbar, and we get to the end, Vayachanu al, I think the last plus one of the last psukim there is Vayachanu al arvot Moav al Yarden Yerecho. This place right before we get into Eretz Yisrael, which is where we're at right now. Vayachanu be'arvot Moav al Yarden Yerecho. This is where we're at right now. Arvot Moav, arvot. The lashon is from the erev. It's the darkness. It's the thick of the darkness. It's riots. It's corona. It's confusion. It's parnasa. It's parents not being able to see their children and grandchildren. It's all these things. It's what is going on. What's going on is that we're on the brink of Geula. And I know that people have said this for years, but we're seeing the prophecies of people coming home, and it's going to happen more and more and more. And I'm so excited for this generation. I'm inviting all of you friends, please come join us here, if you can, in our kehillah that is so in love and is so broken right now because we can't praise Hashem together on Shabbos like we know how we can, but we know that there's something bigger in store. And we would be so honored to have as many of you as possible eventually blossom together on that tree here, but wherever it is in the Holy Land. Ki ish echad b'leiv echad. Have a wonderful, beautiful Shabbos Kodesh. May all of our dreams come true. And may we hold on tighter than ever, because it's funky and it's probably only going to get funkier. But if there was ever a time to tune into these concepts called emuna and bitachon, it's now. Good Shabbos, everyone.